In a time before time itself, when the stars were nameless and silence reigned over an untouched cosmos, something happened. Something that was never recorded in traditional scriptures, an event so ancient, so profound, so disturbing, that it echoes to this day like a forgotten whisper behind the story of Lucifer, before the rebellion that split the heavens, before the fall that transformed the bearer of light into the eternal symbol of darkness. Another being, more mysterious, more ancient, more feared, fell before all others. An angel whose existence was erased, veiled, buried under millennia of silence. A being whose fall triggered a domino effect that, long before the serpent in Eden, had already planted the first seed of evil. This is the forbidden story. The story of the first angel who fell before Lucifer, and from the enigma that theology preferred to hide. Have you ever heard of Lucifer? Have you heard that he was the first to fall, the first rebel, the beginning of all spiritual corruption? But that's not entirely true, is it? What if there was a celestial being whose fall preceded all others? An angel so powerful and so dangerous that even his name has been erased from human memory? A being whose existence completely changes how we understand evil, rebellion, Eden, and even the origin of suffering in the world. Today, you will discover the forbidden truth that few dare to mention. The story of the first fallen angel before Lucifer. And when you understand who he was, everything you think you know about evil will change forever. Before we begin, please like and subscribe because in today's video we're going to reveal mysteries that most people have never heard of in their lives. If you enjoy deep, hidden, theological, and historical topics, this channel is for you. Turn on notifications because what you're about to hear is rarely told openly, and it will surprise you from beginning to end. Now, take a deep breath. The journey begins. From the earliest days of theology, a silent consensus reigns among scholars. The official narrative that has reached the world does not tell the whole story. In fact, it is only the visible surface of a much deeper, more mysterious and unsettling ocean. When you delve into the oldest texts, the forgotten manuscripts, the apocryphal fragments, and the traditions that have survived only orally, you realize something unsettling. There is more to the origin of evil than the simple rebellion of Lucifer. But before we can understand who this first angel was, we need to go back to the beginning, not the beginning of the physical universe, but the beginning of the spiritual structure that existed before any matter. Imagine for a moment the silent vastness of a cosmos yet uncreated. No stars, no planets, no sound. Only the pure existence of God, the eternal, expanding his will over nothingness. Before any material creation, the first movement of the divine was the manifestation of spiritual beings. Angels arose as conscious flames, as living thoughts, formed not of flesh, but of purpose. And among these beings, some were created with specific functions: messengers, guardians, worshippers, warriors, and those who guarded the secrets. But there is one class that is rarely mentioned: the primordial observers. Beings charged with contemplating and recording the first echoes of creation, the first movements of light, the first expansion of the spiritual universe. They were witnesses, scholars, guardians of the deepest knowledge. And it is among these beings that we find the key to the mystery of this video. Because, according to very ancient traditions, scattered among pre-Christian Jewish texts, reinterpreted Sumerian fragments, manuscripts from the Qumran library, and legends preserved among the peoples of the East, one of these observers was the first to deviate from the purpose for which he was created. And this deviation occurred long before the celestial revolt that swept away Lucifer and the third of the angels. This is where the silence begins. This is where the forbidden part begins. This being, whose name rarely appears, is cited by some scholars as Ezel, by others as Semyaza, and by some more secret texts as the angel of the void, because he felt for the first time in the history of the cosmos something that no other angel had ever felt, absolute curiosity for that which God had not revealed. And this detail is crucial, because while Lucifer fell due to pride, while the watchers of Enoch fell through desire, while other angels fell because of rebellion, this angel fell for seeking forbidden knowledge. And this type of fall is the most dangerous of all. He approached the limits of his comprehension. He studied the essence of light, the structure of spiritual energy, the nature of existence, and according to ancient traditions, began to ask questions that no angel should ask. Where did the primordial light come from? What existed before the Eternal One? Why were we created? Why can't we create in the same way that God creates? And it was at this point that his spiritual heart, which should have been aligned with the divine will, went astray. He did not want to be God, as Lucifer desired. He wanted to be the creator of his own knowledge, the master of his own truth. And this, in the spiritual realm, is more serious than it seems. Because knowledge in heaven is not just information. Knowledge is power. Its essence. It is living energy. And when a created being tries to absorb what does not belong to it, its own nature is twisted. This angel crossed the boundary of what is permitted. He touched upon that which only God understands, the mystery of origin, the secret of existence itself, and in doing so, the fall happened. Not like the fall of Lucifer, with war, battles, and expulsion. Not like the fall of the Watchers, with forbidden alliances and visible sins. His downfall was silent. It was an internal incident. It was spiritual, almost imperceptible. But it was so devastating that, according to apocryphal manuscripts, the celestial kingdom trembled. Because an angel doesn't fall immediately, it becomes corrupted little by little. Its light begins to distort. Its spiritual form begins to change, and its connection to the Creator begins to break like threads snapping one by one. And when that angel realized he was changing, it was too late. Curiosity turned into obsession, and obsession turned into a hunger for forbidden knowledge. And here comes a shocking revelation. It is because of him that the concept of forbidden mystery exists. It was his fall that established the idea that there are secrets that not even angels can touch. And this is where the video starts to delve even deeper. Because you must be wondering, if this angel fell before Lucifer, then why have we never heard of him? And that's an essential question. The answer is simple and frightening, because his story was erased. He shouldn't be remembered. He shouldn't be quoted. His downfall was meant to remain hidden forever. And there's a very clear reason for that. If such a high-ranking angel fell for seeking forbidden knowledge, then any being, human or celestial, could follow the same path. His story is a warning. A silent warning. A scar in the spiritual realm. And this is where the most important point of this section arises. The story of this angel not only precedes the fall of Lucifer, but also influences it. Yes, that's right. According to mystical traditions, it was the echo of the fall of this first being that awakened unease in Lucifer. Because when an angel falls, the whole of heaven feels it. And Lucifer, as one of the greatest and most beautiful beings created, realized that something was wrong. That the balance had been broken. That one of the silent pillars of creation had crumbled. And this spiritual noise, this invisible tremor, planted a seed within him. A question. An unease that would later turn into rebellion. Evil did not begin with pride. It started with a question that should never have been asked. And that's the most important point of this part. The first evil was not the rebellion. The first evil was doubt. Doubt about the purpose. Doubt about the Creator. The question of where to draw the line between what is permitted and what is prohibited. And it was this doubt that paved the way for everything that came after. For the fall of Lucifer, for the corruption of the Watchman. to the serpent in Eden, for temptation, chaos, and suffering. It all began with a single angel, a being whose name almost no one knows, but whose fall redefined the entire spiritual history of humanity. To understand the depth of this first angel's error, we need to go back to the exact moment when his fall began to manifest visibly in the spiritual realm. Unlike Lucifer's thunderous rebellion, his corruption spread like a silent shadow, a transparent poison that seeped unnoticed. At first, not even the archangels perceived it. It was like a flame burning without light hot, but invisible. According to the oldest fragments, this angel became obsessed with the forbidden area of divine knowledge, the essence of creation. While the other angels merely contemplated and obeyed the divine order, he began to question the spiritual fabric that sustained everything. He realized that creation was not just an act, it was a system, a mechanism, a code. And the more he studied, the more he saw that there were patterns, structures, and laws that governed existence. Laws that he wanted to understand and perhaps one day master. This was unacceptable. Creation was not meant to be fully comprehended by created beings. God is the sole architect of existence. Light, spiritual matter, time, energy, everything springs from his direct will. But this angel began to realize that if he understood these mechanisms deeply, he could manipulate the very essence of reality. He didn't want to be God. He wanted to understand God. And that's the difference. That makes their fall even more dangerous. Because Lucifer's rebellion was born of pride. The downfall of the Watchers stemmed from temptation. But this angel's fall stemmed from knowledge, and knowledge, when corrupted, becomes the most deadly poison in the universe. It is said that, at a certain point, he went beyond the limits of contemplation. He not only studied what was permitted, he sought what was hidden. Ancient traditions say that he attempted to penetrate the chambers of primordial light, a spiritual space where the secrets of existence itself resided. According to mystical Hebrew manuscripts, the spiritual DNA of creation was kept there, something so sacred that even archangels like Michael and Gabriel were not allowed to touch it. But this angel tried. He crossed the forbidden's border. And at that moment, something happened. A breakup, a cosmic snap, a sound that was more of a sensation than a vibration. Ancient sources describe it as a tear in the fabric of light. And a dark detail emerges in the accounts. He saw something that no angel should see. We don't know exactly what it is. Each tradition describes it differently. Some say he saw it before creation. Others claim that he contemplated the absolute void that precedes everything, a spiritual antimatter so dense that it can corrupt even the purest of beings. Others even claim that he saw the secret that God hides even from heaven. Whatever it wasn't meant for angelic eyes. And when he returned, he was no longer the same. Its light was blurry. Its brightness had changed in tone. The sacred energy that angels carry, a radiation of absolute purity, now seemed unstable, vibrating at a different frequency, and that is how the archangels perceived it. The first to notice was a figure rarely mentioned in traditional scriptures, but present in mystical texts. Archael, also called the guardian of the frontiers of light. She noticed the anomaly. She sensed that something had been violated, and she alerted Michael, the celestial prince. And then the investigation began. But before any confrontation could occur, the fallen angel had time to do something that would forever change the destiny of humanity. He attempted to replicate forbidden's knowledge. Yes, he tried to do what only God could do, to give origin, not to life, as some think, but to form. To energy, a type of artificial light created not by divine will, but by the distorted understanding he believed he had achieved. And this is where the plot intensifies. When he tried to create, when he tried to imitate the divine process, creation responded immediately. because every attempt to imitate true light generates the same result, shadow. And this shadow was not just darkness, it was something new, a type of unstable spiritual energy, an antithesis of divine light, something that should never have existed. This corrupted spiritual substance is referred to in some traditions as the first shadow, precursor to all that we know as evil, temptation, corruption, and chaos. It was not Lucifer who created evil. It was not Satan who originated the darkness. It was this angel, in trying to reproduce that which was not meant to be touched. Evil was born as a mistake, like a detour, like an imperfect creation. And when he realized what he had done, his very essence began to deteriorate. The light that constituted him reacted against the shadow he had created. An inner conflict took root within him, a spiritual imbalance that spread like wildfire through dry cloth. And then the fall was complete. But we're not getting to the climax yet. Before that, we need to understand something fundamental. This event reverberated throughout the entire sky. Imagine a giant crystal being cracked in the middle. The vibration spreads, reaches all other parts, and the sound echoes throughout the environment. This is what happened in the spiritual realm. When that angel fell, even before being formally expelled, all of heaven felt it. And do you know who felt it most intensely? Lucifer. In apocryphal text, there are indications that Lucifer was an extremely sensitive being to the structure of divine light. He was the bearer of light, not just a poetic title, but a function. He carried within himself a higher portion of the original light. When the first angel fell, Lucifer felt as if a wound had been opened in creation. And it was from that moment that Lucifer began to ask questions. He began to fear that creation was vulnerable. He began to realize that there were limits. And these limits awakened in him something that would later transform into pride. It's like a child who, for the first time, realizes that their parents don't reveal everything. Curiosity is born. The unease is growing. And in time, rebellion arises. Try. Lucifer's fall began long before the war in heaven. It began with the silent fall of that first angel. And this is the key point of this section. The evil we know today did not begin with rebellion. It began with forbidden knowledge. And this paves the way for the climax, because now we need to understand what God has done in the face of all this. According to ancient traditions, God did not punish immediately. God observed. And that surprises a lot of people. But God does not act on impulse. Everything he does is planned, perfect, intentional. The first divine reaction was not expulsion, but restraint. God isolated that angel. He separated him from the others. He placed him in a spiritual space called, in some traditions, the cave of silence, or the room of the unspoken, a spiritual region where corrupted beings were, temporarily contained so that their essence would not spread. There, he was confronted by the very shadow he had created. And there, he realized that he had made such an extreme mistake that his existence would never be the same. This is where the story gets even more intense. Because, while he was isolated, he did something that no other fallen being had done before. He asked for forgiveness. He tried to return. He tried to undo the mistake. But the problem was that his essence was already corrupted. He was no longer pure light. The shadow existed within him like a permanent spiritual scar. He could not return to his original state because light does not accept imperfection. And, in a final act of desperation, he tried to warn the other angels about the danger of forbidden curiosity. But it was too late. The seed he planted in the cosmos would germinate over time, causing the downfall of others. And the greatest irony of the story is this: he didn't want to destroy it. He didn't want to rebel. He didn't want to dominate. He just wanted to know. And that's what destroyed him. Now that we've reached the deepest point of this narrative, we need to take the riskiest step of all understanding what really happened to this angel. and how its existence is directly linked to the fate of humanity and the concept of evil as we know it today. After his silent fall, after his failed attempt to return, after being contained in the cave of silence, something extraordinary happened. A divine movement that few texts dare to mention, but which explains everything that would follow. Because God didn't just punish. God transformed. According to ancient traditions, primarily mystical interpretations preserved in Jewish esoteric circles, this first angel became the guardian of error itself, not to be destroyed, but to serve as eternal witness that forbidden knowledge cannot be touched without consequences. But what's most impressive is this: the shadow he cast did not disappear. This corrupt energy, imperfect, unstable, antagonistic to divine light, was stored, isolated, but it continued to exist. It was impossible to extinguish it, for it had already been born, and everything that is born, even if born from imperfection, becomes part of reality. This is where the story dangerously approaches the threshold of the forbiddens. Because that shadow, unlike everything else created by God, had no purpose. There was no order. It had no function. It was pure chaos, condensed imbalance, absolute absence of divine harmony. And this is the revelation. When Lucifer fell, he didn't create evil. He merely embraced something that already existed. The shadow was there before him. The mistake was there before his rebellion. Corruption had already been sown long before the war in heaven. And when Lucifer turned against God, he found this corrupted energy, an energy that perfectly matched his new spiritual state. He clothed himself in it. He shaped it, expanded it, used it as a weapon against the divine. Lucifer was not the creator of darkness. He was its first major user. And now we understand the terrible weight of this truth. The first evil arose from a mistake. The greatest evil stemmed from a choice. That first angel did not become Satan. He did not become an active enemy of the light. It became something even more tragic, a symbol of what happens when creation attempts to touch the unattainable. Some texts describe him as wandering eternally between light and shadow, unable to fit into either side. A being trapped between spiritual dimensions, condemned not by divine wrath, but by the inevitable consequence of his own actions. And now, we've reached the most delicate moment of all, the connection with humanity. When the shadow first manifested, it remained latent, silent, contained. But when humanity was created, and God gave man free will, this shadow encountered something that had never existed in angels. The ability to choose is influenced. Angels, being pure spiritual beings, only fall when they break their purpose. But humans are impressionable. They can be guided, seduced, confused. And that is exactly what happened in Eden. Although many directly associate the serpent with Lucifer, some ancient texts suggest that the previous shadow, the remnant of the first angel's fall, was the fertile spiritual ground where temptation found space to manifest itself. In other words, the shadow cleared a path, the snake simply used it. And that is why, even today, humanity struggles with thoughts, doubts, temptations, and questions that stem not from pride, but from curiosity, the same curiosity that corrupted the first angel. Doubt about God, doubt about purpose, the question of good and evil, doubt about the meaning of existence. It's not simply rebellion, it's unsettling. It's a hunger for knowledge. It is the spiritual echo of the one who fell first, the one who tried to understand what was not meant to be understood. Now we've reached the climax, the final climax, the forbidden's revelation. According to some occult traditions, this angel's name was removed not as punishment, but out of mercy. God erased his name so that his downfall would not be an invitation, so that no angel, nor any human being, would attempt to follow in his footsteps, because names carry destiny. They carry a function. They carry identity. A forgotten name is like a closed door. But one truth remains: the first fallen angel was not destroyed. He lives on as a reminder of the boundary between the light and the arrogance of knowledge. Its existence explains: why does evil exist? Why does chaos exist? Because shadow exists. Why is free will so dangerous? And why does humanity carry such a profound dilemma between curiosity and downfall? He was the first to fall. But he was also the first to teach the cosmos that no being, neither angel nor human, should attempt to overstep what belongs solely to God. And now that we've revealed everything, only one thought remains. If evil began with the pursuit of something forbidden, then good begins when we accept what is permitted. What destroyed that angel was not the desire for power. It was the inability to accept that not everything needs to be revealed, and that is the great lesson for us. Because on life's journey, there will always be questions that don't have immediate answers. There will always be mysteries that we cannot decipher. There will always be things that surpass our understanding, and that's okay. Light doesn't require you to know everything. She simply demands that you trust her. The origin of evil did not begin with hatred, but with one question. And the greatest weapon against evil is not fear, it's humility. Humility to recognize limitations, humility to trust, humility to walk without needing to see everything. And if you've made it this far, know this: you have just entered one of the deepest and most rarely told mysteries of spirituality. And there's much more.